I don't know if I'm gonna actually be able to say anything unique in this recording, to be honest. But I've put so much out in Discord and random places, so I might as well just stick my views online. Yeah, I mean the clock situation is appalling. And I just I'll see if I can say anything unique on the topic. And genuinely, in times like this, you do have to take a step back and try and play a bit of devil's advocate for the person who's made the decision you disagree with. But I really struggle to do that in this case. It's really, really hard to draw a conclusion that this is at all in the interest of the community. And it's just so easy to disprove the reasonings that it's been chosen to be removed that I can't, in my head, do much in the way of advocating for them in my head. Now, that being said, I think we saw the data for the survey. We saw the data for the survey they put out, and that overwhelmingly said, don't remove events, don't remove clock, right? But that didn't come to fruition. We did remove clocks. So there must be some data somewhere else. And what I would really, really like to see, if they're going to continue with this and if they're going to go ahead with this, they need to do the decent thing and show us exactly what the factors were in making that decision. We don't need a summary. We sort of need a really long report that shows us exactly what's gone wrong. How many incidents have you got? Compare this to another event. For example, transport misscrambles, right? How does clock compare in those misscrambles to other events? Because they're actually very easily done, right? If you take a Pyraminx, for example, that's actually a very, very easy puzzle to accidentally perform a move on. And so I'd be really interested to see that information, how much more problematic clock is. And then, again, the question still isn't, does that warrant removing clock, right? Because you take a look at a previous issue with clock, right? Extras caused by pins, that's a really common thing we used to run into. And we made a really positive change to the regulation so that the pins didn't matter. And though it was received a bit weirdly at first, it's actually been a very positive change to clock. And I have not even a shadow of a doubt that it's made a really significant difference. I saw people get extra 3 on clock. I don't rarely see people get extra 1. It's really uncommon. So that's my thoughts on that aspect. And I really do think that if they're going to keep going with the decision, then we really need to see a good reason rather than a brief summary. I think if you look at the outrage like this, all that's really been done to try and calm that is lumping it in with the discussion about FTO being added. I think FTO being added is brilliant. I think it shows that they've listened to the community and said, this is clearly a really, really popular event, let's add it. That's a really, really good decision. I can't fault that at all. The decision I have to fault is that they've decided to lump them together. Now, strategically it makes sense, but it's so transparent. If you are making a decision you know is going to be unpopular, lumping it in with a decision that's definitely going to be popular sounds like a really, really sensible thing to do. But unfortunately, it's really, really transparent. And what it does actually is just a disservice to both events. So FTO, that's constantly going to be known as the event that killed clock. No longer has FTO been added. FTO has replaced clock. And I see people saying that online. People saying FTO has replaced clock. I see clock mains saying you will never see FTO at a competition I organise. You see clock mains saying I'm boycotting FTO. But in reality, FTO has nothing to do with it. I mean, you can pull the difficulties holding it at World Championship, but we're holding him both at the World Championship. At the World Championship next year, the last round of clock ever, and we're managing to fit it into the schedule. And so I struggle to see the benefit of not holding it at a major championship. You can schedule these things. Our standard competition is 2 days long. We extend major championships to multiple days. If you're adding more events, you give a larger variety, you give more opportunities to get good at different puzzles, you retain more competitors, you will increase your competitor base, and you'll probably be able to afford to hold the competition for an extra day, or afford the venue a little bit later into the evening, and perfectly enough time to hold the rounds a bit later. Now, this is theoretical. I'm pulling this out of thin air, but it sounds reasonable. And I think that the takeaway from that really is that there are much better solutions to the clock in that regard than just removing it. I think the spectator aspect is really contrived as well, and I think it's probably one of the most unfortunate points that's been made in this. I think it really demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding by the board of directors into what the spectator experience of Cubers is. And that's really, really unfortunate. And let me break that down a little bit, because, it's a bold statement. If you think of clock, it's probably one of the fastest events. It's the fourth fastest event in the WCA, right? It's one of the events that can be solved in under 2 seconds. One of 4 events that can be done in under 2 seconds. It's a very fast event at the top level, and the top level is where you should think about your spectator experience, right? If you're expecting people from outside cubing en masse to come and watch this, or expecting a large audience from a distance, that's going to be major championships. And who are you watching at the major championships? You are watching the fastest competitors. So you take your fastest competitor base and say these people are going to average under 3 seconds. Compare that to Skew, Pyraminx, and 2x2, right? So from a distance, as a spectator, do you watch the progression of the puzzle from not solved to solved? I don't think you do. I don't think there's enough time to watch that. I think the aspects you take away from that is maybe the turning at most. But realistically, the aspect that you take away from that as a spectator is the competitive nature of the round. You're looking at all of the competitors surrounding them and what times they're getting, who messed up the scramble, who turned really well there, who's got this really good pace. And that's the aspects you focus on. It's not actually watching the solution. I think you'd actually struggle to find many events where you do watch the solution progress. I think maybe 3x3 and 4x4 you can make a case for that, perhaps square one. I think anything slower than that, you get into an aspect of people solving under the table. And that's another point, right? That's not spectator friendly at all, and you can't stop people doing that. But it brings me to my next point, because you do have multiple solutions to this. When it comes to spectator friendliness of an event, you've got, the ingenuity that some people have taken at major championships to introduce overhead cameras. And that investment has led to a really, really great viewing experience for people online. Euros 2024, we had a massive big box at the top where you could watch stuff. I don't think it wasn't over the head cameras, but it was, a similar scenario. Really, the thing that would improve the competitor experience is not removing the event. It's, thinking about how we can make that downside less of a downside. I unfortunately think I don't think you're going to see a huge base of non-cubing people coming to watch our events. And that's just very hard to do from a spectator level. I'm really not sure how you do it. I think the most similar example I can think of to how cubing might end up in a spectator way would be something like the Tetris World Championship. But I wouldn't say that their community of non-Tetris players who view it are necessarily going to stay that way. I think a lot of people discover it exists, watch a bit of it, really entertained, and then start playing it. Now, there are those few non-players who are just interested, but that's what I mean. Or you have people who played it when they were kids and they watch it because they're like, oh, that's what I used to do. I think we'll get a bit of viewership from people who, you know, sold a Rubik's Cube back in the 80s or had one they used to fiddle with as a kid and now they want to watch it at a high level. But really, the goal with that should be to convert those people into cubers. And, you know, I think that's the way the community should be going, right? From my perspective, we're a great community. You know, it's a really independent sport. You know, there's something in it for everyone. Even if you're not going to win, even if you're never going to break a record in your life, you still got your own profile to care about. And we're such a supportive community, and I'd hate to see it move away from that, become more competitive, become more for people who don't cube. You know, that doesn't appeal to me at all. I don't think that really appeals to any cuber. There's maybe a middle ground, but I don't think we should be removing events with that in mind. God, my mind's got a bit blank on all of them. I bring up the list of reasons because there was another one. Oh yeah, difficult to scramble. I mean, that's just nuts. Difficulty scrambling clock is ridiculous. I can scramble a clock somewhat fast, but if I do it in competition, I will get a clock scramble up now, and I'll sort of show you what I do. Right. Didn't turn very fast. You can listen for the clicks, and I guarantee you that scramble is indeed fucking great. Scramble is indeed correct. It's really not that difficult to do, and really the action there should not be to remove the event. The action there should be on the delegates to manage their competition better. If they've got people who are struggling to scramble, they should be going to their competitors and saying, right, I need you to stop scrambling. Or they should be giving some coaching and saying, look, this is the way to do it. You know, slow down, don't try and scramble it fast, listen for the clicks, try not to pause. Similar to doing a soul, you will scramble it perfectly fine. I think it's that rush that causes the issue. Also, I think a lot of the incidents caused by clock cause so much uproar because the decisions are so unpopular, and rightfully so. And really, the action, again, is not on clock. It's on the WCA to change the way they handle miss scrambles, because clock is not the only event that can happen for. We had the Yiheng disqualified solve that had a different AUF in the other direction that got disqualified. You know, it's not a unique thing to clock things like the world's final situation. It's just unfortunate that was the most high profile thing we've ever had for that, because it dethroned a world champion. And yeah. Anyway, I think that's my thoughts on it. I thought originally maybe the best thing to do would be to sort of, you know, everyone throw their weight to the board. I really don't think that will make a difference. I think everyone should make a public note about it, and going on the WCA forum is probably the best way to do that. There is a long thread on there. Do I expect them to read through every single word of every single one of them? Absolutely not. But what you do by raising that on the forum is you give a real quantifiable amount of uproar. Fill out the petition as well. I haven't checked it since this morning. I'll just check it now. Currently at 2,629 signatures. Really, really great from that, because it's been 24 hours and we've got 2,500 signatures. And those things have just been going around on social media like Discord. You're not even hitting the full competitor base there, and that really goes to show that it's a really, really unpopular decision. I think, considering that they then later make a point about big cubes maybe having an event removed, big cubes blindfolded having an event removed, I think that's a really upsetting thing, because if the WCA board follows suit with what, and I'll be careful here. This is what the current sentiment is of the board, right? And it's pretty easy to see. And I'm not saying this is the absolute truth, but this is the sentiment that the competitors have about the WCA board, is that our voice does not matter to them. And, you know, they've made that visible to us by not listening to our overwhelming thoughts not to remove the event. But also, if you look at all of the other situations in history where we've caused an uproar and haven't heard anything back, this is why people have lost faith in actually getting anything done here. So for the people that main 5x5 blindfolded, 7x7, this is a really upsetting time for them, because it feels like their fate is sealed already. The WCA board should now have the humility to admit that they made the wrong decision. This is a really, really big opportunity from them to make the wrong decision and then to listen to the public and actually overturn it. And if you do that, people are going to have faith in you again, and people are going to actually believe in you to do a good job with it. But right now, every single person is against the WCA board. That's 2,600 people outright saying that they do not like the WCA board, that they've made a bad decision, not in the interest, and they're furious about how it was handled. I mean, hey, the change was not properly communicated out to WCA leaders, to delegates or anything. You know, a lot of those people found out at roughly the same time as we did, and that's poor. You think about the amount of people who are going to be taking the flak for this, but we haven't had a word from the board about it yet. Anyway, to anyone who is a clock main, I'm very sorry for you. I really, really hope you don't lose your event, because it has risen hugely in popularity, and yeah, it's just an appalling decision. But yeah, don't just sit in silence about it. You know, channel that, go and make a big fuss, because you need to do so. Your voice does matter, even if they act like it doesn't. And yeah, just everyone take care of yourselves, really. Hopefully we'll hear something soon. That's my thoughts. I'll probably put a very similar post onto the forum. I have not done so yet, because I've been I thought I'd calm myself down a bit before I did so. But that's my thoughts on the whole thing. Look after yourself, guys.